without further ado, Chris Powell.
Thank you so much for the invitation to come and speak to you today. And this is really the latest page in a story that begins in 2016 that I'd like to tell you about that I think will be of interest to you. I've been a libertarian since 2000. I took a turn in the barrel as state chair in Oklahoma, but like I said, this story really begins in 2016 when we achieved ballot access for the first time since 2000, thanks to some changes in the ballot access law, which was the worst in the nation and is now just one of the worst in the nation. So we got a mild improvement, and we were able to get on the ballot. And so I went down to the county election board on the last day of filing at the end of the day so that I could see what races might result in a two-way contest in November. And there was one that was going to be that. It was going to be county clerk. So I filed for county clerk, paid the $200 filing fee, and I spent maybe $500 total on that campaign. And I can say I in this because this was all me. We got ballot access. That was thanks a lot to the National Party, who helped us, did most of the heavy lifting on that. But as far as this campaign itself, this was just me. So one of the things that I did was I made campaign signs that consisted of color copies, a piece of construction paper, all that put in a plastic page protector sleeve, a couple of bamboo skewers, and some tape. So they cost about 38 cents each, which if you ever bought campaign signs, you know 38 cents each is nothing. So got those out, did everything that I could do with the limited resources that I have, and it played out exactly as I had hoped, in that I got 36%, which in Oklahoma's most populous county was 89,000 votes. To put that in context, Gary Johnson in Oklahoma, and Oklahoma was one of his best states, third or fourth best in the percentage in the country, statewide, got 85,000 votes. So I beat Gary in Oklahoma. And that was probably about 70,000 people who had never voted for a libertarian before, but they found that two-way race on there and they didn't want to vote for the Republican. So they marked that libertarian candidate once. And if you can get them to do it once, you can get them to do it again. So I was pretty happy with that. We were, and it impressed a lot of people. And I thought we did a lot of good with that for a low investment. I was proud to spot that opportunity and take it. But now we were on the ballot again, and we were going to be on the ballot for a gubernatorial election for the first time. So this was a big deal. This was, in large measure, this was going to be an introduction to Oklahoma voters for the Libertarian Party. And I was looking at our other candidates for that. There was a fellow named Rex Lawhorn, and then a guy named Joseph Allen Schrievogel, who we will come back to, who were running, and I wasn't real happy with either of those candidates. I've gotten to know Rex a lot better since then. He's a good libertarian. He's a great guy, hard worker, but he doesn't like being a candidate. I love it. I unfortunately have that. I'm a politicaholic, so I really enjoy being a candidate. Rex really didn't, and that showed in some of the things that he did. And he would have been a fine nominee, but at that time I was concerned about what was going to happen, and so I began thinking about making a run myself. And what I had done in 2016 with that county clerk race attracted the attention of a fellow named Brian Beavers, who's a CPA, and could do my financial reporting, which I did not want to do. So, based on that, I was able to get this other fellow to assist with my campaign. And not only did he take care of all the financial reporting, but he was a tremendous volunteer and helper and taking care of all kinds of things. That commercial that you saw, he connected me with the gentleman that produced that for us, who gave us a great rate on it, and we were very happy with the result. I hope you liked it, and so thank you. So now it wasn't just me anymore. And as we went through the campaign, one of the things that happened was I had a plan to reach out to independent voters. My view was that if we had the opportunity to get and were able to generate tens of thousands of independent votes in that primary, that we could parlay that into success in the general election. But then a good deal out of concern for the aforementioned Mr. Schrievogel, the primary got closed so that it was Libertarians only, and I had to change my strategy. So I spent about 8 months knocking on doors of registered Libertarians all across the state of Oklahoma. I probably knocked on the doors of about 2,000 Libertarians in Oklahoma, which was about a third of the total number of registered voters at that time in our party. And I watched my opponents with what they were doing. Rex was doing meet and greets. He went to most of the counties in the state, but he wasn't contacting individual voters the way that I was. And Mr. Schrievogel was doing parades and various other strange things, such as videos on the internet. And so we felt really good about how it was going with that, and we were able to, and this is one of the things that happens in campaigns, is managing your intelligence. We were able to prevent our primary opponents from learning what our strategy was. They didn't know we were knocking all those doors until just a couple of weeks before Election Day. And I think that was very beneficial for them to not know our strategy. And that's just basic nuts and bolts campaigning, is to manage, make sure that you've got your eye on your opponent and try to keep them from seeing what you're doing. But as it came out, we got just under 49%, which unfortunately put us in a runoff, and Rex finished second. And then in third place, Mr. Schrievogel, who I'm sure that you will recognize his stage name better, that was Joe Exotic. So as famous as he might be thanks to Netflix, Rex and I beat the tar out of that guy. And it was certainly gratifying to see that registered Libertarians rejected this D-list celebrity who thought that he could just walk in and take our nomination. But then we went into a runoff, and that really hurt us. We were about 50 votes short of a majority, which would have prevented the runoff. And so we had to spend 2 more months in a primary campaign, and that prevented us from being able to begin fundraising for the general election campaign and start reaching out to voters generally and doing all those sorts of things. So we're not able to do everything that we wanted to do. But we got into the general election campaign, and we were able to do some I was able to get in two debates with my general election opponents. Unfortunately, not the televised debates, but I was able to go toe-to-toe with them. And we felt like we really put out that first foot forward to the people of Oklahoma about what we were about, and that that the Libertarian Party was a group that they should consider. And then we got to Election Day, and the votes came in. I was a little disappointed. We got 3.44%. I was hoping for at least 5. But the people that passed State Question 788 to legalize medical marijuana in Oklahoma, which was a tremendous success, 57% for medical marijuana in the buckle of the Bible Belt, Oklahoma. We were very pleased with that. But out of all of those voters, tens of thousands, if not over 100,000, never voted before and haven't voted since. If we could have got more of those people out to the polls, we could have done a little bit better. But despite the fact that I had wanted to do a little bit better, I got to looking around at the other states. And out of 22 Libertarians on a ballot for governor in 2018, we got the highest percentage. So we did something right. And again, with all the eyeballs that were on that campaign, we were able to pick up more people who saw what we were doing and liked what we were about. So we'd done that. We felt good about what we'd done in the end. And the party was continuing to grow. Our registration continues to ratchet up. We are over, we were at 6,000, a little over 6,000 in 2018 for that gubernatorial primary. We are now over 12,000, so we've doubled our registration in the past 2 years, and we've continued to grow. We elected, we had an individual, David Greer, who was appointed to the town council in Doherty, Oklahoma, which is a very small town in southern Oklahoma, at the end of 2018. And then in 2019, in the spring, we were able to elect our state chair, Chad Williams, to city council in Choctaw, and a fellow named Josh Clark to a school board in a rural area, Dale Schools. So we're moving in the right direction, and we felt that gubernatorial campaign was a big part of continuing that progress. And then in my little town of Bethany, which is about 20,000 people, one of the 2 council members for my ward moved out of town. And so he had to vacate his seat. Now, I hadn't had any expectation of needing to consider running for something else until 2020, but all of a sudden this opportunity presented itself. And I not only had a treasurer who would help me out, I also had a lady by the name of Crystal Davis, who, she didn't live in my ward, but she lived in Bethany and was very concerned about city government. We'd already worked together to oppose tax increment financing that the city was trying to do. If you're not familiar with that, it's a really terrible corporate welfare program where municipal governments give money to developers, and if they don't have it in Ohio, be thankful. You can read horror stories all across the country. Let me put it this way. This is a California idea, tax increment financing. It's a California idea so bad, California has outlawed it. So anyway, we had worked together trying to fight this TIF, and then this city council seat came open for a special election. And Crystal wasn't just an activist. She's not a libertarian. She's registered independent, but very, but will very pointedly tell you she is unaffiliated, which is indicates the level of thought that she's given to that to not belonging to any party. But she had worked for some campaigns. She had worked for a congressional campaign for a Democratic candidate in 2018 and knew a lot about what she was doing, knew a lot about the data. And she said, if you're running, I will be your campaign manager. So I had a campaign manager and a treasurer who weren't just my friends who I assigned those roles to. They were people who knew what they were doing and wanted to be on our team. So we got into the election, and a lot of what attracted Crystal to help with my campaign was that she had seen me out knocking doors in the gubernatorial campaign. She'd followed along with what we had done. She had followed along with the amount of effort that we had put in. And if you've ever been a campaign manager and you've ever had a candidate who doesn't have the motivation to go out and do some work, you know why that was attractive to her. So we had a great campaign team. We knew that that the sitting member who was having to vacate his seat was going to have to do that before anybody else. And once he actually did, we hit the ground, and we had just about the whole ward, the doors knocked in about the whole ward before filing. We still wound up with two opponents. We had a Republican and a Democrat. It's a nonpartisan seat, but we had a Republican and a Democrat, and they both called upon their party for support. And both parties sent some volunteers and some assistance. Thankfully, neither one of them knew what they were doing. That's always helpful. If you're going to run for office, if you can run against people who don't have a clue, I recommend that. But we knocked a lot of doors and talked to a lot of people. We did mailers. We did a debate. And when we got to Election Day, where me as a Libertarian running against a Democrat and running against a Republican, both with party support, but also with the fact that we raised more money, we had more volunteers, we put in more work, and we got 63%.
Wow.
And it was genuinely a we effort. It was a team effort. I got to be the face of it, but it was a team effort. And that tells me a great deal about how we are progressing in Oklahoma from dead in the water with no prospects at the beginning of 2015 to 4 elected officials and a growing party and prospects to stay on the ballot for as long as we continue to do so. In 2020, we have, in addition to Jorgensen Cohen for our presidential ticket, we have Robert Murphy for U.S. Senate, who is a longtime Libertarian. We have a statewide race for Corporation Commission with Todd Agopian, who is in a 2-way race. That is the only other statewide race besides President and Senate. We have a 2-way race for a state Senate district, and we have a 2-way race for a court clerk position in Pottawatomie County. And in fact, those 3 2-way races actually overlap in a particular area, so there will be a ballot that there will be some Oklahomans who will get a ballot where they will see more 2-way races between Libertarians and Republicans than they do between Republicans and Democrats. And again, that's not, about that 2016 race, I can say because that was me. But everything else since then, and everything else that all these other people. It's a team. It is working together with people that you don't necessarily agree with all the time. And I saw a lot of that here this morning with some of the discussion of the bylaws. As far as my campaign manager goes, we still chat regularly. She's a great friend. She became a great friend during that campaign. She went on to basically, I was able to springboard her into a career as a professional political consultant. She worked for me, and we paid her chicken feed. And then she worked for Michael Bloomberg and got paid a whole lot. And now she is working for our congressman, or congresswoman, Kendra Horn, who in one of the biggest focal point districts in the nation, and working on their mail ballot program. And for her, it is a lot more about, it is not about the candidates so much as about the process and about bringing people into the process. And she's going to work for candidates that we don't necessarily agree with, but she's also going to be someone who can help with and will help promote and has relationships with our candidates as well. So this is how you get somebody who not only can help your people, but will also help push some of your ideas into the ears of those other people. So I'm really proud of her for what she's been able to accomplish. But that's what we've got going on in Oklahoma, and the same thing can happen anywhere, really, that people are willing to get together and organize and make a plan and spot opportunities and then capitalize on those opportunities. One of the things that I think is critical to doing that is that you have whoever is going to be the face of that, whoever is going to be the candidate, needs to be someone who is out there building trust with voters. Voters are looking, the vast majority of voters are never going to be ideologues. They're busy living their lives. They're busy doing the things that they do for entertainment. They're not going to be focused on the kind of things that we necessarily focus on. They're never going to be in a room like this arguing about how many natural rights can dance on the head of a pin. So when we're in here talking to each other about those kinds of things, we need to remember that our candidate needs to be able to communicate with those folks, because that's the vast majority of voters. And we need to package liberty for popular consumption. That's one of the reasons why I got behind Joe Jorgensen back in February, is because that's a candidate that I saw that could do that, that was focused on doing that. And I was very gratified to see that she was nominated. I think we've got real opportunities in this presidential election campaign, and I hope that we're able to capitalize on that, in no small part because Ohio needs 3%. I have been in the ballot access doldrums. It is no fun. And I know that Ohio you have had some special challenges here over the past several years. So we definitely need to do that and do everything we can to make sure that that rising tide does lift all boats for the Libertarian Party. So I would encourage you to, if you want to find this kind of success in your backyard, if you're the person who's willing to be the candidate, you need to think about that and think about whether you're the person who can get out there on a doorstep and talk to somebody who disagrees with you for 20 minutes and walk away. Maybe you still don't agree, but they feel like they can trust you. They feel like they know that you're a real person who cares about them. Because they don't care what you know until they know that you care. So we need to be able to make those connections with voters. And if you're not a person who can do that, and many of us are not, you need to find the person who is and help support that candidate, because these victories don't come from just one person, they come from a team. So that's really my message, is that we need to package liberty for popular consumption. We need to package our candidates for popular consumption. That doesn't mean abandoning principle. That means packaging the principle for the people that we want to deliver it to. Well, that sounds like a good place to stop. My favorite part of speaking in public is answering questions. So I will be happy to take any questions that anybody has.
What was your favorite part about running for city council?
My favorite part about running for city council. The fact that we were so out ahead of the competition early on. That was really, we knew we were going to win that race as long as we didn't screw up. And that was so much fun to go into it and get, go out to go knocking doors every day knowing that we were ahead. It was delightful. And it carried through the whole race. So, I mean, I've been on a ballot 8 times. I've come out on top 3 of the last 4 times. Primary, a runoff, and then the city council election. So it's a great feeling to know that they're chasing you instead of you chasing them. Who else got a question? Yes, sir.
With regard to the gubernatorial race, did you have issue differences with your opponents, or was it stylistic?
The question was in regard to the gubernatorial race, where concerning my opponents. Are you talking about my primary opponents?
Primary opponents, yes.
Primary opponents. Was it issue differences or stylistic differences with my primary opponents, which were Rex Lawhorn and Joe Exotic? With Rex, it was really stylistic. Rex is a solid libertarian. We have, you put, I can't think of the name of that guy from, Danny Bedwell from Mississippi says, there may be 2 libertarians who agree on everything, but I don't know either one of them. There's obviously things that we're going to disagree on, but Rex and I were pretty close. Joe, as those of you who watched the Netflix documentary may recall, Josh Dial saying about him, didn't know anything about libertarianism. And he wanted to legalize marijuana so that we could get the tax money. That was how he was going to pay for schools, which both shows that he didn't understand how much tax money we could get, and that he had the wrong idea in general, that it was about getting revenue and not about getting more freedom. So, that was just one small thing. Now, I will say that Joe is definitely not a Republican and he's not a Democrat. He's closer to us than either of those 2 parties. But, he really didn't know what he was talking about. So he wanted to play with his cats.
Mine is largely a comment, but I'll ask for your response to it. I am, as some of the people in this room know, I'm a congenital politician. My first political campaign that I worked in was 59 years ago, when I went door to door for my father, who was running for city council president. My father's comment that has held with me for all of these years about politics is, and I keep reminding libertarians of this because so many of us forget at this point, every election to each voter is primarily about that voter. That's what they care about. They want to know how what you're talking about is going to affect them.
Okay, so every election, every voter for them is about them. I absolutely agree with that. And like I said, if they don't trust you, they're never going to vote for you. One of the things that you got to do is build trust. But I didn't really hear a question.
No, I said it was.
Okay, okay. All right. So, who else got a question?
The question I have for you is, I can wrap my head around the federal level what we expect out of our president, our senators, our congressmen as a libertarian. Pretty much get rid of a whole lot of the federal government, whatever. Pick your favorite one for that. For us, agency. Same thing at the state level. You're a city councilman. Talk to us a little bit about what a libertarian looks like in the city.
Okay, what a libertarian looks like in a municipal government, local government level. It's a lot of, you're really just focusing on good government, and I know that's kind of an oxymoron, and avoiding the boondoggles. I'll tell you right now, my city is struggling because we have some budget issues. And we have some budget issues because we've spent the last 3 years burning through our cash reserves, millions of dollars of cash reserves that we had a situation where a city manager would present a budget that lets the council spend what they want. And that's what they wanted to hear, so they didn't question those numbers. And that went on for 3 years until we got to a situation where all of a sudden we've got a budget deficit and we have to start cutting stuff. Now, you may say, well, that kind of stinks for you to have to come into a city council when you've got a budget crisis and you have to start cutting stuff. Well, not for me. I am happy to see that. That's when you can get rid of the fat. That's when you can make cuts. It's the only time. We managed to they passed that stupid TIF, put it into place. But because of the fact that we've got a budget crisis, they haven't been able to use it. And I'm very thankful for that. So it's looking at that kind of thing. It's looking at, on Tuesday, we had, I don't know what it's like here. I believe your governor has just passed a mask mandate for the entire state. In Oklahoma, our governor has not done that, but municipalities and county governments are looking at that. On Tuesday, for our council meeting, I wrote a resolution encouraging everyone to wear masks and reiterating the right of businesses to be able to require masks. But that resolution was the council saying, we think you should do this, and I did that specifically to mitigate the possibility of having an ordinance passed where we criminalize not wearing a mask. So, I was able to get that in place and get that passed with a 7-1 vote. So that, if I hadn't done that, I don't know who else would have proposed what, but it could very well have been a case where our 911 dispatchers are being called by citizens about, go chase this person down because they're not wearing a mask. And that's not good for the dispatcher, that's not good for the officer that comes out there, and it's not good for the person who's on the receiving end of it. So that's a couple of examples. I'll say on the budget, a couple of weeks ago we approved our budget for the next fiscal year, and we should have, but did not, cut payroll. We should have made some pay cuts. And I was the lone no vote. So they passed it, but they didn't pass it without objection. And when our sales tax goes in the tank as this pandemic keeps rolling along, they're going to be reminded of that no vote. So there's, one vote can only do so much, but you can do some things and get some things accomplished. And that's, it's like, to put it in sports terms, it's small ball. It's little issues that you're working on for your little town.
That gentleman asked a great question, so just to follow up on that. I know it's probably different in different states, but what about union negotiations with your police departments and that sort of thing? Would that be pretty important to the budget because it's a big struggle?
the question is about, as far as municipal governments negotiating with your public sector employee unions. We have what is called a council manager form of government, where the manager, the city manager, does the day-to-day running of the city, and by our charter, we on the council, our job is to set policy. It's not to do those things firsthand ourselves. The city manager negotiates it, and then we vote on whether to approve what's been negotiated. But we were able to get agreement from, in fact, we had our police union lined up to take the pay cut. But then that didn't work out for other reasons. And then the fire union, which the fire union's always tougher, they accepted rolling over their previous contract, so no raises or anything like that. So we came out better than we might have. And I have no complaints really about that, because I don't know how it works here, but in Oklahoma, if the union decides that they don't like what they're being offered, they can push it all the way to a vote of the people, and the daggone fire union always wins. So, so it's not something that we do directly, but we've come out better. And I think part of that is we have a city manager. He's an interim city manager because we've had a revolving door, which is a whole separate issue. But he has come out of retirement, and he has a lot of experience with this and with dealing with them. So we came out better than we might otherwise.
What about the pension aspect of that? Is that like, because in the East Coast states, they don't get pay raises, but in the back end, it ends up in a pension, and down the road, it's in effect, right?
This question about the pensions for the public sector employee unions. In Oklahoma, we are fortunate, at least us on the municipal level, are fortunate enough that police and fire, their pension program is actually separate. We pay some into it, but it's run by the state. So we don't have to pay those pensions. Now, the other employees, we do have pensions, and that's one of the things that we did in the budget, trying to cut back on the budget, is we reduced our contribution to those pensions, which was part of the reason why we got the backlash that kept us from doing the salary cuts. But we have kind of tried to rein that in a little bit. Who else got a question? Seeing or hearing none? Again, I appreciate so much the opportunity to come and talk to you. And it's, I got here, like I said, this is the continuation of a story that really started in 2016. And I think it's a story that could start for any one of you this year, or maybe spring of next year, or maybe for some of you it's already started and you're already on that path. I certainly hope so, and I hope that the story continues and that you have similar kind of successes with what you're trying to accomplish. Thank you so much.